Now, my timeline on Twitter this morning, or X, whatever you would like to call it, is absolutely chock full of people sending me pictures of all manner of Labour politicians, from Lisa Nandy to Angela Rayner to Keir Starmer to every single other member of the Cabinet, backing WASPI women, showing them their support, promising to help them out when they get into power. Have a look at what Angela Rayner had to say 5 years ago about this.
Well, the government failed the women who were born in the 1950s. They stole their pension, that contract, that agreement that they thought they had, and then accelerated it so that those women didn't have the chance to prepare for that. We said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable. And any government should act responsibly to these women who have looked after their children through that period. They're often looking after elderly relatives now, and they're a part of our society that have felt really unjust by the way they've been treated, and it's absolutely right that we deal with this issue.
Yeah, absolutely right that we deal with this issue, but unfortunately, having dealt with the issue, they've thrown those same women under a bus. Jane Cowley's here. She's the director of WASPI Women. Jane, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm pretty disgusted by this, I'm afraid. I'm not a woman, and I don't have a pension yet, but I think it's an absolute betrayal of the worst sort, and I just don't think the government should be allowed to keep getting away with all these lies that they keep telling.
I think you're right, Mike. I mean, really, there are some broader issues here as well. There is a complete betrayal of the promises that many who are now on the Labour front bench made to us in the past.
Yeah.
But there's also the issue that why do we have an ombudsman? The ombudsman is there to look at the work of government departments and see if they get things wrong. And the Ombudsman here very clearly found that the DWP had got things wrong. And now we've got a government that seems to think it can ignore what that independent watchdog has said and just go its own way and choose not to comply with their recommendations. And that's a really dangerous precedent to set, because it just means that, government can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants. It doesn't matter if its departments don't do the right thing by ordinary people.
Right. And also, to use the phrase that we didn't want it to be a burden on the taxpayer, well, I'm sorry. I mean, these women are the taxpayers, aren't they?
Indeed we are. And, I think we need to just remember that by raising women's state pension age, the government has already, this is just to date, it's not even into the future, has already saved £180 billion. So the 10 billion or so that they're looking at in terms of being too expensive for a proper remedy is just a tiny proportion of that. So, that argument really doesn't wash. Also, the Ombudsman himself has said that the availability of resources should not be a barrier to justice being done and compensation being paid.
Right. And what does it mean for an awful lot of the women? Does it mean that they're having to work more, longer hours, longer years into the future? They can't retire when they wanted to?
Well, of course, many of them have now reached their retirement age, so many of them have stopped work. Some of them, often because they are women who worked in low-paid jobs without access to company pension schemes, are really, really in very difficult situations. As you come up towards retirement, you try and put a bit of money aside to help you through the years when you're going to be living on a pension. Any savings those women had has long been used up because they had to cope with up to 6 years without the pension they were expecting. Right. And many of them are now in very, very difficult circumstances. We've just done a survey, and the overwhelming majority say that as Christmas comes, they're thinking very hard about spending a lot less than they have done in previous years. Some of them are using food banks.
And it's not, they don't have to be begging for this. Their money, it's not like, they're asking for anything. It's actually their money, right?
Well, it is not their pension we're talking about. It is compensation for injustice, and we need to be absolutely clear on that. And the fact that the government thinks that it can recognise that there's been maladministration, which has caused, has definitely caused an injustice, but just say, sorry, we can't actually afford to pay out any money on that. It might be too difficult.
I know, absolutely shocking. So have you got the next stage ready? What can you do?
Well, at this stage, all options are on the table. We've already taken some legal advice. We're going to be talking to our lawyers. What we're really hoping for as well is that we know that we have the support of over 300 MPs. Many of them are Labour MPs.
Yeah.
We had an event in Westminster in September, and we had Labour MPs queuing up outside the door to come in and have their photo taken, saying they supported WASPI. Now, we really do hope that those Labour MPs will have the courage of their convictions and will do what the Ombudsman has said and ensure that Parliament does the right thing and brings forward a proper compensation scheme.
Absolutely right. Well, we wish you luck, Jane. Do keep in touch with us. We'll see what we can do to help. Jane Cowley, Director of Women Against State Pension Inequality. Absolutely ridiculous. Extraordinary that the government would say that it's not within their gift because, you know, it's going to be a burden on taxpayers.